What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Wicked Prepping YouTube channel. What you're about to see is highlights from our past stream. If you'd like to see the whole stream, you can click the link in the description box below, which will take you to an unlisted video showing the whole podcast. We stream usually 3 times a week on Twitch. If you would like to follow us, join the conversation, smash that like button here on YouTube, follow us on Twitch, and let's start talking.
All teams ready?
You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile.
Very concerning. So we got this information, this sort of press announcement out of Moderna the other day. I believe it was Monday. Basically saying, hey, phase 1 trials are done. Man, it went great. Everything's wonderful. We're going straight into phase 2. Then we're going to sort of start phase 3 in the middle of phase 2. And gee, we're going to have vaccines for everybody by the end of the year. We're going to swing into production and everything. And the market just went, boo, took off. Just like this euphoric high, this roller coaster swing of emotion. And I want to talk a little about it because I'm highly concerned about this for 2 reasons. So, first reason being whether or not where we're at with this particular vaccine and whether all that expectation is warranted at this point in time. And the other is more just vaccines in general and how it's being conducted. So we get this press release basically saying everything's great. Basically, they did a very brief, very short phase 1 trial. Now, you got to understand, this phase 1 trial consisted of a whopping, hold your breath here, 45 people tried the vaccine. They were grouped into 3 groups. We think 15 each. I believe that's how they did it. It breaks down evenly. That may not be exactly right. But it was basically 45 people in 3 groups. Each group got a slightly different dose amount. So we've got 45 people that tried this revolutionary, brand new type. This is an mRNA type vaccine. So it's never been done before. Very interesting, very exciting in terms of cutting edge, but brand new. Like, we have no experience with this. And we did a phase 1 trial on 45 people. Worse than that, the information that they've released, they only released the results for 8 people out of that 45. There were 4 from one group of 15, 4 from the second group of 15, and nobody from the other group of 15. Now, those 8 people that they released the results on were great results. But I'm highly skeptical of that because we've seen vaccine companies and pharmaceuticals do this before, where they only release the information that's really beneficial to them, and then later on they kind of dump the information that wasn't so good. So I'm totally perplexed as to why they would only report the results from 8 out of 45 people. I mean, it's not like 4,500 people, 45 people. So that's really concerning, because if that was their best results from those 8 out of 45, I want to know what the rest of the sample looked like. And then on top of that, so that took the markets flying up. The stock in Moderna, of course, price went up and whatnot. Then when you look into their CEO, the guy has been aggressively dumping his stock, like consistently selling every day, selling shares. So, not anything.
We know from experience, when they start dumping their shares, that's never a good sign. We get hit with the world pandemic when people start dumping their stock shares.
Yeah. We've read that book before, seen that movie. Not that there's anything wrong with him selling his shares, but the insider trading in terms of, your board, your CEO, whatnot, I kind of track that because usually people do that. It can tip their hand as to how they see the future coming. And it's just, to me, it's really odd that at the very time you're announcing that everything went great with this phase 1 trial, you're ready to ramp up production, why would you be dumping shares? And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then they announce that they're going to do an equity offering for, I don't remember the exact amount, but it was a huge amount that they're going to sell shares to raise capital for the manufacturing portion of this. But they're announcing this before they've even gotten into phase 2 yet. And we know from vaccine development, a lot can happen from phase 1 to phase 2. And so it's just a lot of suspicious things going on in terms of him selling a lot of shares. He also is involved in a lot of investment companies that are, they're LLCs and whatnot that hold large amounts of shares in Moderna. They're all selling, that he's triggering those to sell. So I'm a little suspicious. I want to see all the data come out from the whopping 45 people, because I something stinks. I smell a rat, and I hope that's not the case. I hope this vaccine approach works. It's cutting edge and it's great, but there's some real red flags and warning signs going up about this. It just, my spidey sense are like, I've seen this before, and then the bad news comes out, and I'm wondering if they're not trying to take advantage of that and make a little money, which is what the pharmaceutical industry is all about. So that's kind of just on the drug side of it in terms of them releasing this information and some questionable stuff there.
Real quick though, because we have some people just on joining in.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you came in at the tail end of that, it might be a little hard to follow, but basically from what I can understand, because I didn't know anything about the Moderna trial until just right now. I have not been tracking that at all. So this company, they got the green light to go ahead and start doing clinical testing on coronavirus vaccines, and they said that they have been doing that, and they had 45 voluntary patients come in for coronavirus vaccination, and then they released the science basically behind 8 of the 45 patients.
Correct. Yeah,
and only those patients that were doing really good, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, all the results were great results, but they only released.
So it's almost like they were trying to get it was like a preview. And they were trying to tease you into buying the whole thing. They're trying to get more funding for the research or something.
Yeah, and boost their stock price. It's a lot when you're dealing with these pharmaceutical companies. It's a lot of marketing,
right?
Because they're all about the money, so they're going to put out things that are encouraging, that are going to get people to invest and dump money into it. At the same time, really concerning that the CEO and a lot of other companies that he's a part of, investment firms, are dumping their stock. They're benefiting from this. It almost has an appearance of a pump and dump. So
I mean, that's not super uncommon though. Like Warren Buffett, he does that all the time with Berkshire Hathaway, or whatever it's called. He does that all the time, where he'll buy his own stock when it's low and hold on to it, and then sell it back and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and he'll sell off a lot of it. But you're right. The timing is really conspicuous.
This is a little different though, because you're not buying low. I mean, you're at the very beginning. If the information you've put out that this is going to be tremendously successful and everything, and you're already to start ramping up production and whatnot, you're at the very beginning of a boom. Why?
Right.
Why?
That's true.
To me, the fact that we're talking every day since the stock price started going up. Consistently and aggressively liquidating shares across all his interests that have holdings in the company. And again, people do that. He may need cash personally. Could be a legitimate reason. Just little suspicious. And
especially as an investor mindset like you developed, you have to track those types of trends so you'll know when to get out.
Yeah.
And it's a very different way of looking at things.
Yeah, I look a lot at insiders to companies and whether they're buying, whether they're selling, and sometimes it's worthless as an indicator, but sometimes it has some value to see what they're thinking in terms of the future. And if you're sitting there on the eve of this huge breakthrough where you're going to be making trillions of dollars, if this thing's as great as you say, little odd that you would be across the board liquidating shares.
I wonder how profitable this is kind of off topic, but I wonder how profitable the coronavirus is going to end up being, because like right now while it's new, a lot of companies like My Healthcare is offering like 100% no copay treatment, testing, and then anything associated with it, like loss of work and insurance. My insurance company reached out, my life insurance company. They said if you're impacted by it, you can have your full income subsidized to you, and everything like that. You can receive the full benefit payouts, kind of like if you were in a car accident or something like that. I wonder how long those programs are going to last.
Well,
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to be dealing with coronavirus for a while. It's going to be around. It's like it's going to be. I hope it won't be like seasonal, but it's going to be around for some time in some cases, right? And I think that's kind of been the general consensus on reopening everything is we're going to have to deal with this long term anyway. So let's go ahead and reopen and save the economy. I wonder how long it's going to be before insurance companies are like, you know what, we're not going to cover 100% of the cost behind coronavirus because they don't cover the flu. When you get flu tested, I mean, you have your copays. That's what insurance is there for, but it's not 100%. It's 70, 30, 80, 20, whatever. But they're right now in Blue Cross Blue Shield at least is saying we'll cover everything. If you end up in an ambulance, if you have to get lab work done, whatever, it's covered. I couldn't see that lasting for that long.
yeah, well, and not to get too far off topic, but I think that's a really important point. And the thing everybody has to remember is there's no free lunch. I mean, all the insurance companies picking up the bill for all that. I mean, the treatment itself's not free. The vaccine's not going to be free. They're paying for it and covering that under your insurance plan. The problem with that is inevitably that's going to raise the cost of insurance.
Yeah,
and so
premiums are going to spike next quarter.
Yeah, and so either you're going to get hit with that or your employer's going to get hit with it. And the problem is, and we're going to talk some more later on about the economy and whatnot, is that a lot of these jobs aren't going to be coming back. And a lot of jobs that do come back are going to continue to be sort of reduced hour. Companies are going to move to the part-time model. And so more and more of them are going to stop picking up insurance costs. And so people are going to have to start picking up their own insurance. And those costs are going to come back. The middle class is going to get screwed. Every way you look at this, the middle class is getting screwed. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice that they're picking that up now, but we'll pay for it. We're just going to pay for it later.
They're just picking up on the front end. We're going to get hit with it, like a big shovel to the face in a couple of months. That's what I'm saying. Like, I wonder how profitable this industry is going to end up being when we start getting into vaccination versus treatment. Because, like with flu vaccines, you get vaccinated every year, you pay for it, or your insurance pays for it, someone pays for it, regardless. And then it still doesn't work, right? Like, it's still not even close to 100%. It's like 45 to 55 on a good year. Successful, but what it does is it creates herd immunity. If enough people get it and enough people get exposed to the germs, you build antibodies. I get the science behind it and everything like that, but it's a huge industry. Flu shots and vaccines are a huge industry, and then you have the other side of the flu, which is treatment. So, I mean, I got a flu shot and I still got the flu. A lot of people I know get the flu shots and they still get the flu. And yeah, it might not be as bad if you have the flu shot, but you still have to go. You usually end up in a doctor's office or a hospital. Sometimes you have to get fluids pumped into you. You have to get lab work done. All that stuff has a huge cost associated with it, right?
Yeah.
And then you get your hospital bills, and you don't necessarily see it right up front if you have decent health insurance. But if you max out your premiums, you'll see it really fast. Because then you'll be responsible for 100% of it. But like right now, my wife doesn't have health insurance, so every time we think about going to the doctor, we look up service cost, and it's like an ultrasound is $1,500.
Yeah.
Basic doctor's appointment's $300, and a specialist appointment's $400. So all these costs are. I just feel like health insurance is and pharmaceutical companies are going to make so much of a killing in the next 2 years after all this.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be insane.
Oh yeah,
and that worries me because anytime you have that much of a golden goose, they're not gonna work on curing coronavirus. They're gonna work on treating it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's $1 trillion bet on this vaccine. I mean, whatever company and whatever investor group is a part of the winning solution,
right?
Man, they're gonna make trillions off of it.
So speaking of which, the FDA allowed Moderna to hold public clinical trials. There was waivers, liability signed, and it was voluntary. It wasn't like, most trials are voluntary. But did you see that Bill Gates' company lost the FDA pulled a plug on their whole plan. Bill Gates, he had a leg in this fight. He was doing, can't remember the company off the top of my head, but he was working with a company on developing a clinical trial vaccine, and they got FDA approval to go public with it. And then a couple days ago, I want to say either Sunday or Monday, the FDA announced that they're pulling the plug on the project, and his company is not allowed to start clinical trials of their vaccine for whatever reason. Now that's interesting.
Yeah.
So what if that Moderna, whoever posted the most like best results the fastest, what if they're getting all of the all of the traction? Because there's so many laws in place when it comes to virus treatment and research alone.
But that's the crazy thing. You turned your mic off, man.
No, I didn't. I'm still here.
Sorry.
I just quit talking.
Well, I'm looking at you and you're still talking because there's a slight delay. So I was like, wait a minute. I'm seeing you talk, but I'm not hearing you. Now I got you, man. I got to get back in the groove. But that was the second part that I kind of wanted to get into a little bit about Moderna and this vaccine. And that's the safety side of this, because there are a ton of rules and laws and all these steps that you have to do. And they're there for a reason, because we've had a lot of problems with vaccines, and we've learned over decades of developing these, our system has gotten better and better, and we have safeguards and checks and balances in there that we've learned the hard way from are important and need to be there. And I am shocked at the process that is being allowed by the FDA for Moderna. They did none of the preclinical. Usually you go through where you do all, like for a year and a half, where you do all kinds of toxicology studies and breakdowns, skipped right through all that. Then you go into the animal testing. They've done no animal testing, no nothing. They went straight into phase 1 trials.
Well, I mean, they did that on purpose, I thought. I thought that they specifically said that they were skipping those steps in efforts to combat the virus. And I was wrong. I just looked it up. His company, Bill Gates' company from Seattle, the research company, they lost. Basically what they were trying to do was at-home coronavirus testing, where they were sending out test kits to people's homes. And they were collecting data samples from everybody, healthy or infected, and they were trying to create some type of widespread monitoring system. And they had King County, which is a county in Seattle. They had their approval from their health officials to do it, but they didn't seek any FDA approval. And the FDA did an investigation into the process and determined that it didn't meet their minimum criteria for a lot of different reasons, and that their results can be skewed in multiple different ways, and they are basically meaningless numbers. So please stop. Like, basically what was happening is they were getting these results back, and then they were reporting the patient numbers to different totals for coronavirus, cases, the case numbers.
Yeah.
And it was kind of skewing the charts and skewing the numbers in a way that was untrackable, because the data collection was so dumb. Because you send it to a house with 5 people. I mean, hell, one person, if they're infected, could just take the test 5 times. You know what I mean? Or one person could just take the test 5 times. And then he was using that data in the same research group to seek. He already was in the process of seeking approval to clinically test a vaccine, and the FDA pulled the plug on that at the same time. So
Gotcha.
I don't know if they just weren't happy with that company and how they were doing the patient testing, or the fact that they tried to go over their heads or work around them. Either way, it just seems a little fishy. Anytime you talk about Bill Gates, it's hard because he's such a prolific figure. It's hard to assume he's doing something for the good, in my opinion. But I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe he was trying to do something good here and get widespread testing available to everybody. I don't know. I think this has to do with his agenda, his vaccination agenda and everything. He was just trying to get some raw data to work with. But that's just my take. So Harbinger 50 says, how do they get away with calling it a flu vaccine when it doesn't actually prevent it forever? Like polio, smallpox, etc. You take one set of shots as a child, then never get it. That's a vaccine, not the flu shots. They just tag it like that to make it seem better. Nitpicking just bugs. No, it definitely bugs me. They shouldn't call it. That's why I don't call it a flu vaccine at all. I don't call it that. I call it the flu shot because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And the difference is, if they could find a way to make sure that you get side effects of smallpox, and then you could take a pill for the rest of your life that you have to pay for every single month because of the side effects of smallpox, they absolutely would start doing that to children now. That's how the pharmaceutical world is. But luckily, in the beginning, it wasn't about money. It was about actual advances in science and research and betterment of humanity. And there were some morals to it, and they actually worked to cure. I mean, you know all this. I get that was a rhetorical question, but there might be someone listening that doesn't quite grasp how messed up the pharmaceutical world is. When they literally give you medicine to purposely give you side effects to give you more medicine, it's like they want to keep their cash cows going, you know?
Yeah.
Donnie Lucifer says, "Evening, Doug, and evening, Chris."
What's up, Donnie?
Good evening, sir.
Hey, man.
But yeah, I wasn't trying to get too far off topic. I just thought it was interesting that Moderna trials come out this week, and then the FDA pulls a lot of different. They basically say, well, I know that we said you can have approval to go do your clinical studies with your research group in Seattle, but now we're saying you can't.
Yeah,
You know, that's definitely interesting to me.
yeah, no, and you are absolutely right that they made a decision to allow Moderna to opt out of all the normal, usual steps that you take because this was, quote unquote, a crisis and we needed to get this vaccine as quickly as possible. But again, we have all those steps in place for a reason because we've learned the hard way that viruses can work very badly, especially on something like this that's dealing with your immune system. That's very sophisticated, very complex. To say basically we're going to skip a lot of our preclinical work. We're going to skip all the animal testing to make sure this is right. Then we're going to go into phase 1 immediately, and we're going to call phase 1 45 people tested, and then smoothly jump right into phase 2. And my understanding is phase 3 will start before phase 2 even finishes. So they're trying to fast track this as quickly as they can. And I totally get it and understand it. But anytime there's a virus that you're working on a vaccine, it's a crisis. I mean, you want a vaccine as quickly as you can, but that doesn't mean you just, I mean, it's like building an airplane. You don't just suddenly throw parts together because you got to get somewhere and then throw people in it and go. I mean, there's steps of testing that you need to go through to make sure that that airplane is safe and airworthy. And it's very, very concerning to me that we skipped a lot of steps and we're compressing phases of testing that usually go about 18 months. And we're compressing these down to 2-3 months with very limited sample sizes to get a vaccine. And where I'm coming from, if that's the process and this ends up working and they go into manufacturing and this comes out in December, January-ish or whatever, I will not be getting this vaccine. I want to see 1 million plus people get the vaccine and then wait a year and see how that goes before I take it. I'm not going to take a vaccine that has not gone through all the safety steps that it should have gone through. I'm not in that big of a hurry to get that vaccine. And that's very concerning to me. We all want a vaccine, but we have those safeguards in place for a reason because things can go very wrong with vaccines. And they may not immediately go wrong. They may go wrong down the road. There's a reason why time and quantity of testing is important when it comes to vaccines, especially with a system as complicated as our immune system. And on top of all that, this is a brand new method of a vaccine with the messenger RNA. It's never been done before. So that's even more reason why we really should take our time and make sure this thing really does work. You know, that's what we all want, but you know, I just think we're basically saying, oh, it's a crisis, so we're willing to take a bunch of risks, but we're not really explaining to the public what those risks are. I mean, we just basically created an airplane in 2 months and we're going to put millions of people on it without the testing that we know really should be done. and that's scary.
So-
I personally don't want to be one of those early guinea pigs. No thanks. I'm passing. I'll wait till 10, 20 million people have taken. Wait a year, make sure everything went good, and then if I haven't got it by then I'll think about a
But-
vaccine.